Hi friends, I'd like to share with you a little mini reflection that I call the hitchhiker. In the days following Easter, we read several scriptural accounts of Jesus' disciples failing to recognize him after the resurrection. In John chapter 21, 1 through 14, we can read the story of Peter and John and James and Thomas and a few of the disciples that were back up in Galilee waiting for Jesus to go and meet them there. And one late afternoon, I'm sure they're figuring out what to do with their lives, and Peter says, "I'm going fishing." And the other guys all jumped in and said, "Sure, me too." And they all went out fishing, and they fished all night. And of course, we know the story. They caught virtually nothing. And in the morning, here's this fellow along the shoreline yelling out to them, "Hey, children, have you caught any fish?" And they're like, "No." And he said, "Put your net out on the other side." And they got a whole bunch of fish, but they still didn't know, they didn't recognize that that was Jesus standing there. Well, as the story goes, soon they did, and all of a sudden the apostle John says, "It's the Lord," and Peter, of course, jumped in the water with his clothes on and swam in. But it's interesting that they didn't recognize Jesus. And then one chapter earlier in John's Gospel, we read how Mary Magdalene didn't recognize Jesus and mistook him for the gardener at the tomb site. And then we read in Luke 24 about the disciples that were walking and talking with Jesus for a long time along the road to Emmaus. And it took a long, long time before they realized and recognized him. So, does it seem kind of lame to you that these people couldn't and didn't recognize Jesus? I'm reminded of an experience many years ago during my freshman year at St. John's University down by St. Cloud. I had no vehicle and I needed to use the now nearly extinct mode of transportation called thumbing it. Okay, I was a hitchhiker nearly every Friday afternoon to get from college to my parents' home on Serpent Lake just outside of Crosby. And as a 19-year-old, I wasn't really into the college dorm's weekend noise and party scene. I had a part-time job in Crosby on Saturdays, a steady girlfriend, and most influential at that stage, Mom's cooking after a week of cafeteria food. Yep, I was still definitely a mama's boy at age 19. So every Friday afternoon, there I was on the edge of St. John's campus with my thumb out. A common pattern was I'd get a ride from some St. John student heading over to St. Benedict's College at St. Joseph, and then out on Highway 52 in St. Joe, I'd be hoping to get a ride into St. Cloud, or on a lucky day, all the way through St. Cloud, past St. Cloud State, and out to Highway 10. Standing there with my suitcase showing huge masking tape letters BRD helped a lot to get me towards someone getting me to Brainerd who would take me, right through nonstop. Okay. Then I'd hike through whatever part of Brainerd to the east end by the East Brainerd Mall and finally catch someone from Crosby headed home at the end of their Brainerd workday. So where am I going with this story? Disciples not recognizing Jesus? Well, there was a lady from my hometown named Jane, a teacher at St. Cloud State University who was about my mom's age, and Mom certainly knew her. I'd met her a time or two at the local golf course, as she and my mom were both avid, very good golfers. Well, on Friday afternoons, after accomplishing the part of my trek that got me out to Highway 10 in St. Cloud, I would commonly see Jane in her Volkswagen Rabbit heading out of St. Cloud area as she had completed her week's teaching. She was heading back to her home, which was right across the lake from my parents' home. And she always looked straight ahead and drove right past me. Dozens of times during their freshman year of thumbing it, this happened. Now, in fairness to Jane, there was a transition going on in the 70s where hitchhiking was getting bad publicity and was deemed to be kind of dangerous for both the driver and the hitchhiker. Prior to that, we hitchhiked all the time. You never know what evil might be lurking out there, was the message. People kind of just ceased hitchhiking or picking up hitchhikers at that time. Also, in fairness to Jane, I looked a lot different than any time she had seen me on the golf course. Long hair was in for the first time in modern culture. So, of course, my hair was shoulder length and full beard. Okay. Ironically, you could say I looked a lot like Jesus. She would never expected Tom Koop to be out there hitchhiking, and she might have been wary of any long-haired hippie freakster type of personal appearance. Well, here's where the story gets funny. Jane was paying attention to the environment, and in those days, she was one of the first people to buy a small, high-mileage foreign car. And she religiously followed the guidelines for 55-mile-per-hour speed limit, which was known to improve gas mileage. It was very common that shortly after Jane drove past me in St. Cloud, the car would stop to give me a ride. Now, driving faster than 55 miles per hour, we'd pass Jane somewhere along Highway 10, and I'd get dropped off somewhere by a driver who was at some point heading in a different direction. So out went my thumb, begging for a ride on the next leg of my journey. Sure enough, here comes Jane. There goes Jane. She'd pass me, drive right past me, and we had passed her a couple miles back. Yep, she kept driving past me again and again. One very memorable Friday, Jane actually passed me 4 times, and I passed her back 3 times. St. Cloud to start, then Royalton, then Little Falls, then Brainerd. She drove by me 4 times in one afternoon. We both got home okay each week, and it really became quite humorous between me and my mom. "How many times did Jane pass you this week?" Mom would ask when I got home. But back to the post-Easter scriptures. I wonder if Jesus is out there hitchhiking as I drive along through life. Do I not recognize him? Do I unintentionally or intentionally just look straight down the road as I zoom along through the busyness of life? Does my heart become that Volkswagen Rabbit? Does Jesus gently stand along the road of life, ever gentle, never forcing his way into my Volkswagen? Will I just ride by Jesus as many as 4 times on a Friday or a Sunday or a Tuesday? I wonder if I recognize Jesus in my spouse, my kids, that Democrat Pelosi, that Republican Trump, that homeless person, that elderly person, that young person, that person who thinks differently than me. Do I recognize Jesus in the beauty of creation, in the Bible, in that cheerful barista at Starbucks, in that brave healthcare worker and devoted scientist leading the battle against COVID-19? Is it God's grace that I need to recognize Jesus? Is it God's Holy Spirit? I'd like to close with a musical prayer. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. Yes, I want to see you. To see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing holy, holy, holy. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart, 'cause I want to see you out there hitchhiking. Yes, I want to see you.